Hi, this is Willie Nelson for NORML. For 30 years, NORML has provided a voice for the millions of Americans who smoke marijuana responsibly. More than 500,000 Americans are arrested each year for smoking pot. These are ordinary citizens like you and me, whose lives and careers are being needlessly destroyed. To learn how you can help, contact NORML at www.norml.org or call toll-free at 888-67-NORML.
And distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. This is your daily audio stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular audio podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about the show at our website, normalaudiostash.com. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. Welcome back to the Audio Stash on this fine Friday. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Take a moment to join us at NORML to end marijuana prohibition in America. Just visit NORML.org. Also, make sure to pick up our separate weekly NORML News podcast. You can find it online at NORML.org/podcast. Now let's get to our daily news today. Our news today. Minor respiratory complications, no decrease in pulmonary function associated with long-term marijuana smoking, study says. Long-term smoking of cannabis is associated with an elevated risk of respiratory complications, including an increase in cough, sputum production, and wheezing, but not a decline in pulmonary function, according to a review published in the February issue of the Journal Archives of Internal Medicine. Investigators at the Yale University School of Medicine conducted a systematic review of studies published between 1966 and 2005 that assessed the effects of marijuana smoking on pulmonary function and respiratory complications. The data failed to show an association between long-term marijuana smoking and airflow obstruction, or emphysema, as measured by airway hyperactivity, forced expiratory volume, and other measures, investigators reported. Short-term use of cannabis was associated with bronchodilation. Investigators did find that long-term marijuana smoking was associated with an increased risk for certain respiratory complications, including cough, bronchitis, phlegm, and wheezing. Most of these complications persisted even after researchers adjusted for tobacco smoking. Previous reviews of long-term cannabis smoking have noted similar respiratory complications, though an association between cannabis use and lung and/or upper aerodigestive tract cancers has not been found. Authors suggested that cannabis inhalation via specialized delivery systems, such as vaporizers, would likely yield different results. Cannabis vaporization limits users' intake of respiratory toxins by heating cannabis to a temperature where cannabinoid vapors form, typically around 180 to 190 degrees Celsius, but below the point of combustion where noxious smoke and associated toxins, e.g. carcinogenic hydrocarbons, are produced, near 230 degrees Celsius. According to clinical trial data published last year in the Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences, vaporization is a, quote, safe and effective, close quote, cannabinoid delivery system for individuals desiring the rapid onset associated with inhalation but who wish to avoid the respiratory risks of smoking. Quote, the final pulmonal uptake of THC is comparable to the smoking of cannabis, while avoiding the respiratory disadvantages of smoking, close quote, investigators in that study reported. More information about this story is available at NORML.org. First up on the Audio Stash this Friday, we have to run a correction to our Cannabis Science segment, which ran this Wednesday. Because of some overly zealous editing on my part, listeners may have gotten the very false impression that drivers are not at an increased risk for accident when they're intoxicated with cannabis. NORML's senior policy analyst Paul Armentano, who contributes news, information, and his policy expertise on a near-daily basis to this program, was quick to point out our error. Paul wrote in an email Wednesday, quote, in fact, the largest survey of American crash data, as well as 2 other recent reviews from France and Australia, show an increased risk for drivers. In every study, marijuana use is associated with a higher risk of having a fatal crash. The risk for marijuana smokers is less than that for alcohol, close quote, but Paul points out that this is certainly not safe. French researchers were very clear in their data published in 2005. Here's a quote from that data. Driving under the influence of cannabis increases the risk of involvement in a crash, close quote. Their data comparing alcohol to cannabis in traffic accidents showed, quote, at least 2.5% of fatal crashes were estimated as being attributable to cannabis, compared with 28.6% for alcohol, close quote. We have to emphasize here that the studies are talking about recent or acute cannabis use, typically illustrated by THC blood levels above 5 nanograms per milliliter. That is associated with a higher risk of accidents. Past cannabis use, say days, weeks, even a dozen hours or so, or cannabis as measured by metabolite levels, is not associated with a higher risk. We'll be reviewing the new study of American crash data right here on the Audio Stash next week. So, to be completely clear here on NORML's podcasting, the only truly safe driving is sober driving. Also of note, driving while in possession of any amount of cannabis is certainly when marijuana smokers put themselves at the greatest risk of running afoul of current prohibition laws. So please, folks, do not drive intoxicated, and if you want to drive around with a stash, take along the Audio Stash. Next up on the program today, we're going to check back in with Steve Bloom, the editor-at-large for High Times magazine, and the man behind the Bloomin' Ideas blog, as well as the new site for the news of famous smokers out there, celebstoner.com.
I want to be famous. I want to wear minks and satins and pearls.
Fridays here on The Stash, we get to have a lot of fun with entertainment, music, comedy, and we also get the opportunity to check in with the man who has one hand on the computer blogging and writing away, and the other hand on the pulse of celebrity America, Steve Bloom. His latest creation is the website celebstoner.com, which recently went through a little bit of a revamp to become a link haven for the topic of celebrity stoners. Steve, welcome back to the Audio Stash today.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Doing very well here today, Steve. Glad it's Friday for sure, though, man, after a week of totally crappy weather here in the Northeast. Let's talk about some of the headlines up at celebstoner.com. And the big one is in an event that takes place in warmer places, and that's the High Times Doobie Music Awards. Tell us about what's going on with the Doobies this year.
Well, the Doobie Awards started in 2000. We started 2 award shows back then, the Stony Awards, which is our movie and TV award show, and the Doobies, which followed right after that. We've done those shows in New York straight through until now, and we decided we haven't had a live Doobies show since 2003, and we gave away awards in the magazine last year. We were looking around for a venue in New York this year and decided to to put together two events, the Doobies and the High Times Party at South by Southwest. South by Southwest is a big music festival in Austin that takes place in the middle of March, and High Times has been a participant in that event for years. We've been doing an annual party, which is a big thing at South by Southwest. All different companies that participate throw daytime parties to add some luster to the event. So we've been doing that for years, and we usually get a big crowd for our High Times Party. Austin's a great place for the magazine, and we have a lot of fans down there. And so we decided to merge the High Times Party and the Doobie Awards in one location in Austin during South by Southwest this year. So it's going to be on March 16th on the second to last day of South by Southwest.
Now, Steve, up at celebstoner.com, I see a story that's been dominating the media here in the Philadelphia area, and it caught your attention too, and that's this whole weird set of events happening to the sons of Philadelphia Eagles coach Andy Reid.
Yeah, the Reid brothers, also Garrett in this case, and Brett Reid. Last week, last Tuesday, the two brothers got into separate incidents, traffic vehicular incidents in the North Philadelphia area, suburbs where they live. They both live with their father, Andy, who's the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and mom, Tammy. And first in the morning, Britt Reid had an incident where it's sort of a road rage incident. He got angry at some other driver, got out of the car at a stoplight and threatened the other driver, and then continued to threaten by going back to his car, picking out a gun, and then coming back to the car, that he was threatening and waving the gun around like crazy, and just scaring, the other driver. And so then he got back into his car and took off, but the people in the other car, noted his license plate, and police followed it up to the ownership of the vehicle, which happens to be Andy and Tammy Reid, his parents. They went to the house there and found the car, found him, did a search of the vehicle, and didn't charge him with anything. But as it turns out, this week he was charged subsequently with a gun possession, marijuana, cocaine, Percocet. I don't know if that was illegal, but it was found, drug paraphernalia, in the vehicle. And so then that's number one. Number two, same day, Garrett, his older brother, Garrett's 23 and Britt's 21, had an incident as well while he was driving, and he had an accident. He ran a light, was speeding. He ran into a car, and when the police, came to deal with that, they found that he might have been a little bit out of sorts, and he had admitted that he had been using heroin, and he also had some things, found in the vehicle. But interestingly, he was the one who was more upfront about what might have been going on that day with him, yet he hasn't been charged. So it was a really odd incident down in Philadelphia with the two brothers. It's kind of a stain on Andy Reid, and they went to Andy Reid's house as well and found a gun that might not have been legal. So, Andy Reid's not really quite in trouble, though he owned the vehicle that his son was charged with, driving, causing this problem. So, I don't know. It's just a little, it's a mess.
Also up at celebstoner.com, Steve, is this Michael Irvin story. He's been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and he's had more than his share of run-ins with prohibition offenses, including marijuana.
Oh, he was, the Ricky Williams of his day, so to speak. When he played in the NFL in the early '90s and helped the Dallas Cowboys to win 3 Super Bowls. Right after they won their 3rd Super Bowl in 1996, all kinds of things started to happen with Irvin as far as him getting arrested several times. And the arrests included, cocaine and marijuana. He was mostly charged with cocaine, and actually in 1996 he pled no contest to a felony cocaine possession charge that also included a marijuana misdemeanor charge that was dismissed as part of the plea. So, he's sort of recognized for his overall, drug use, not just marijuana. So here's a guy, who I'm not saying he shouldn't be inducted. I'm not, conservative on this, just because he's a drug felon, but I'm just making the point, that the NFL, doesn't seem to care, which is probably good, that Michael Irvin, has a record, so to speak. The Baseball Hall of Fame is a lot tighter. I mean, they haven't allowed Orlando Cepeda, into the Hall of Fame despite his marijuana arrest of several years ago. So, they seem to hold it against you in the baseball world, whereas the small number of people who do the voting, apparently don't hold it against, football players. They're kind of, antics, that, happens outside of the team. So.
And also, Steve, you named the first legend there on celebstoner.com, Bob Marley. Bob would have been 62 last week, his birthday on February 6th. Tell us about his legend status there at Celeb Stoner.
Well, it's sort of appropriate since Bob Marley's, one of his albums, collections is called Legend, which is just, a neat coincidence. But part of the website, focuses on individuals who we call the top celeb stoners, and we hadn't really created an area for celeb stoners of the past, those who are no longer with us, had an incredible impact on marijuana smokers over the years, and I think no one, other than Bob Marley, would qualify, to be the number one celeb stoner legend. I don't think anybody has had, the impact, on marijuana smokers that Bob Marley has had, you can think of everyone, and you could throw out some other names, and, and I would, sort of, debate or question, whether anybody would be a priority over Bob Marley. I mean, Marley, is so widely loved, by so many people, whether you smoke pot or not. His music is so universal, and has gotten more and more and more significant, after his death. He died in 1981, and yet Bob Marley, you almost feel like he's alive today because his music is so omnipresent, in the world. And, Bob Marley is such a phenomenal musician, had such a great impact, on society back in the 70s and the early 80s, when he was performing and at his peak, that today, he's still revered greatly. And within his music, he spoke about marijuana. Within his culture of Rastafarianism, he spoke about marijuana. It was something that he was extremely open about. He has appeared in numerous photos smoking marijuana. At High Times, we've published, pretty much every one of those photos. We're always looking for another one, but there's, so many shots. He was never shy, to pose for the camera with a spliff, and of course he sings about it. And he devoted a whole album to marijuana kaya, which is a term for marijuana in Jamaica. And he sung about it. When it came to more being rebellious about it, in Rebel Music, 3 O'Clock Roadblock, when they took his little herb stalk away, and he talked about being stopped and busted. And it turns out, all these years later, his children, Ziggy, Stephen, Damien, and all the brothers and sisters, who are performers, they as well carry this legacy, of Bob Marley's, work and his beliefs. And Stephen Marley, who has an album coming up soon, sings similarly about, his travails with marijuana, having been busted for marijuana, him and his brother Jillian a few years ago in Florida. And the new album coming out in March, he sings about it on a song called Iron Bars. He says, I'm an angry lion, because they put him behind bars for smoking ganja. And so, this is an important message, for readers out there to understand, how this family, has carried this message for so many years, and how important it is, and how important it remains for them. There's nobody else out there, that has the impact that Bob Marley and his family, in marijuana culture.
Amen to that. And Steve, also on celebstoner.com and your headline links, you have this extremely funny, almost urban legend thing with a link to a TV Land YouTube posting about the actor who played Greg Brady in the Brady Bunch being high on set for one of the tapings. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's very funny. Barry Williams, who played Greg Brady, I just do a lot of combing the net and looking for stories, and I found this as a clip, and one other website had posted it, and so I just posted the headline, on my site to direct people to that site. But I called it Far Out Man, Barry Williams stoned on the Brady Bunch, and because he used the term far out, it's a very funny bit that they've kind of, it's a clip from the show back in the days, I don't know what year it was, 69, 70, when he apparently, was high on the set, and he tells the story. I think it's TV
Land. Yeah.
TV Land is the channel that ran this, and I presume it was on TV as opposed to a YouTube clip, but I'm not really sure. But TV Land had its like little name, icon logo on the side there, and so they interviewed everybody, Florence Henderson, all the different people who were on the show, and they kind of vaguely remember that particular day on the set where he was a little loopy, and he remembers very particularly that he was hanging out with some friends and he smoked a little bit. He hadn't smoked before or very seldomly smoked, so he really wasn't that familiar with the high. And then he got a call to get rushed to the set, and he didn't expect that, so he goes onto the set, and suddenly, he has to do his part, and he's a little, slightly, out of it perhaps, or a little high, in a way that he would not, generally have been, doing his role. So they just made a big deal of it, and they had a lot of fun with it because he says far out at one point, and then they stop and they go back on it, and they remind you that that's the indicators. What are all the indicators that he was high? It's just a very funny little bit that they did. So, I thought it was a fun video to post that people will get a kick out of.
And folks can see this video we're talking about right now through a link at celebstoner.com. Steve, it's always so much fun to have you here on the Audio Stash. Many thanks for joining us again this week.
All right, talk to you next week.
Steve Bloom is an editor-at-large for High Times magazine and the man behind the site Bloomin' Ideas, as well as the news site for fans of famous smokers out there, celebstoner.com. We have links to them all on our website today at normalaudiostash.com.
I want to be famous. I want to wear minks and satins and pearls. I want to be famous, more than just any old girl. I want to have eyes as blue as the sea. I want all the people to look at me. I want my own show on TV. I want to be that girl. I want to be famous, eat out at Sardi's, have parties at Spy. I want to be famous, go to Paris on private flights. I want to have lovers by the score, movie producers knocking down my door. This is the fate that is in store for me. Oh, when I'm famous, I will wear a gray trench coat and fake red hair, so they all will know that it is me.
And we got some great pod-safe music and comedy for you here on the Audio Stash today. We're going to start things off with none other than the Red Elvises. Here I Am in Hollywood. They were found at the Independent Online Distribution Alliance. Also, we got Dr. Elmo, the man who wrote Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, with a little IRS song here today. We played a clip of the IRS song about a week and a half ago, but now we're going to give the whole song feature play. We're also going to have Ominous Words, a big friend of NORML from California, on the program today. All here on NORML's Daily Audio Stash.
Prison. I had You're listening to Pod Safe Music on NORML's Daily Audio Stash.
You can get away with murder. I seen it on TV. But tangle with a tax man and your butt is history. You can push and you can pedal, you can smuggle and embezzle, you can pack a loaded pistol in your purse. You can mug and you can rob, be a member of the mob, be a stalker or a peeping Tom perverse. You can fake remorse and plead insanity. You can get off on a technicality, but don't mess with the IRS. Let me illustrate. Old Al Capone was so well known for his brilliant career in crime. He'd kill, extort, end up in court, but he never done no time. Until one of his contractors didn't get a 1099. Al got a one-way pass to Alcatraz, and he didn't have to stand in line. You can kick and you can throttle, you can blame it on the bottle, you can drive the freeway in a drunken fury. You can beat and you can batter, and it really doesn't matter if your shyster pulls the wool over the jury. You can fake remorse or plead insanity. You can get off on a technicality, but don't mess with the IRS. Are you with me now? Well, you gotta leave a pretty bloody trail before the FBI gets on your tail. But spill some coffee on your W-2, the IRS will be all over you. You can riot, you can loot, you can poison and pollute, you can barbecue and eat a spotted owl. You can spill and you can spew toxic substances askew until the air and water runs afoul. You can fake remorse or plead insanity. You can get off on a technicality. You're disgruntled with your boss and so you kill him. You went postal because you saw it in a film. After you molested everyone you could, they just moved you to a different neighborhood. You can stab your ex because you love her so. If you're famous, adios, you're free to go. You can choke your coach until you make him croak. If you're a muggy muck, it's okey doke. If you lead us into economic growth, we don't mind a little fibbing under oath. But if you need an open-ended getaway on a federally funded holiday, go on and mess with the kinder, more caring IRS. Right off.
Stoned is what I am, high is what I get. Walk through each day with no time for regret. A cassette we can't change, so rest brains. If you don't like to rearrange, a new page is up to you. Your days are what you choose. I ratchet and cruise, smoking greens to ease the blues. Fuck snooze, it's an electric noose. I connect things to use, asking why when confused. Why the street guys my shoes, what's to lose?
I mentally run like many motions of movement, and still I physically stand still. The theories of terminology of reality's will. Concepts shell, spill, shatter and explode. All matters are atoms to the accumulation of overload. The exact precision estimated for those little foes. But no freestyle flows, and my known knowledge of wisdom given to grow.
If product equals cash, my conduct is an ad. Like threads in the mag, fuck your fads. Fashion's like religion, they both cost too much to stay in touch. Pay for acceptance, pray for connections. The only difference is an R for red like bloodshed. Are you awake or are you asleep? Targeted like sheep, marketing with cheap to make you scream. Nothing's what it seems.
Let our rhymes of inside ignite any spark inside. Separate, debate, divide like darkness and night and daylight. Make it clear the signal here. Intellect divine, let it shine bright and steer fear completely in the right direction. Incisions like intersections, contraceptive and cross thoughts and coordinates with acceptance.
I close my eyes to hear truth. What's proof and how much is enough? I'm but only one thought. Slowly to the top I will rise. While how is compromised, my demise will be patience. Let eyes help me tame it, fuck claiming. Actions are a statement underrated, for most speeches outdated. Perfection's what I'm not, still I talk before I walk. Though I'll stop with practice. Progression's why I thrive, for every lesson equals my life.
My drums sound like trumpets endorsed by love. Proving to break negligence and reminiscing. Ponders the thoughts, the points of views. Rhymes designed to sufficiently supply minds like you. No more stand confused. Teach techniques with rhythmic abuse. Where technicalities used, proven to do. Supplemental replacement of sensations of new. Which is tasting what we already knew. F-U-S-S. It's forever forever we're lost in this. We're forever unsigned, forever under the sun. We're forever utilizing science for everyone. Still they keep walking, still they keep asking you as ass.
We started off that music set with the Red Elvises, Here I Am in Hollywood. Then it was Dr. Elmo with Don't Mess with the IRS. Rounded things out with Ominous Words. High is What I Get. We have links to all those artists on our website at normalaudiostash.com. You've been listening to NORML's Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Make sure you visit our website at normalaudiostash.com. That's NORMLAUDIOSTASH.com for more information about every day's show. I'm your host, Chris Goldstein. Thanks for listening today. See you at 4:20 tomorrow. Podcasting technology of NORML is made possible by Red Aphid Interactive Media. More information at redapphid.com.